All the headway we were making, the fire that we were putting out absolutely stopped. Fire got angry and everything went black, and like it just black within a half a second. But then it was the next half a second where everything just went orange.
Stay tuned. Coming up in this episode is part one of my two-part interview with Clearview Fire and EMS Chief Roree Payment, sharing the details of a residential dwelling fire near miss where he was caught in a fireball due to rapidly changing wind-driven conditions. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor, Midwest Fire.
Every day, hard-working men and women at Midwest Fire build the most reliable firefighting apparatus to be found anywhere. Their customers know a well-built fire engine means lives and property saved. Midwest Fire, a factory direct manufacturer dedicated to helping you extinguish fire before it becomes a raging beast. To learn more about what fuels their passion, visit MidwestFire.com.
Today's show is also brought to you by the Situation Awareness Matters Online Academy. The Academy trains and certifies your team members on situational awareness skills essential for improving high-risk decision-making outcomes. To learn more about this highly acclaimed program, visit samatters.com and click on the Online Academy tab under the Training section at the top of the homepage. Hello and welcome to episode 297 of the Situation Awareness Matters show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this program is to help improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-stress, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you and the members of your team see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from my office in St. Paul, Minnesota, having just returned from delivering a situational awareness program for the Florida Fire Chiefs Association Safety Conference in Lake Buena Vista. Today's feature segment is brought to you by SimsUShare. SimsUShare is a simple and affordable way to help you develop and practice situational awareness skills. You can quickly build sims from your photos to simulate almost any kind of incident, including active threat scenarios. And the new SimsUShare Command Training Center now lets you conduct multi-company drills over the internet, so you can even run drills while your companies stay in station. Check them out at simsushare.com. All right, let's jump into today's feature segment, part one of my two-part interview with Clearview Fire and EMS Chief Roree Payment, sharing the details of a residential dwelling fire near miss where he was caught in a fireball due to rapidly changing wind-driven conditions.
We are live. Hey everyone, Rich Gassaway here from Situational Awareness Matters, and this is one of our episodes of the Situational Awareness Matters show where we focus on and spotlight near-miss events that first responders have had. And on my show today is Roree Payment from the Clearview Fire and EMS Department in Ontario. Roree, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich.
Let's start out by having you tell us a little bit about Clearview and the fire department.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Rich, I just would like to thank you for the invite here. Definitely a fan of what you do and a graduate of your SAM Matters program. So thank you very much. Clearview Fire and Emergency Services is it's a paid on call or volunteer department. We're located in central Ontario, Canada. We're something of a gateway community. We're between one of the largest ski hills in Ontario, the longest freshwater beach in the world, and the largest population in Ontario being the Greater Toronto Area. So we're kind of in between the two of those, and you kind of got to get through here to go there. So with that being said, we are comprised of 5 fire stations within our department. We look after approximately 700 square kilometers of area, including some paid agreement area. We do approximately about 850 calls a year. And we have a full-time chief, deputy chief, training officer, fire prevention officer, admin assistant, and all our suppression staff are volunteer firefighters.
And how many stations did you say you have?
We have 5.
And so 5 stations covering 700 square kilometers.
That's correct, yeah.
So I'm going to guess that there are occasions when your response times can get pretty lengthy.
Absolutely the case. You know, when we get to the west of here, and specifically some of our paid agreement areas that are just kind of in the middle of nowhere, if you will. You know, our initial station, our first due station there isn't too bad, but to get any help from them, sometimes they're on their own for about 20 minutes or things of that nature. So,
now, do you have communities that surround you that use any kind of mutual aid or automatic aid with?
we do have some automatic aid agreements with a composite department to the northwest of us. We have some automatic aid agreements with a composite department to the north of us. And then we provide some automatic aid to some areas to the south of us. The county of which we're in, which is Simcoe County, does have a pretty robust mutual aid program. So it's a very good relationship, excellent working relationships with all our neighbors, and it does allow for some pretty seamless transition to having the closest people arrive and provide assistance.
Okay, and do you guys provide the EMS for your jurisdiction, or is that the third-party service?
It's actually the county that does that. And
do you do any kind of first response for medicals?
Yep. So we do first response for medical calls. So basically your basic life support type stuff. And then the next level is brought on, and transport is brought on by the county.
And then do you staff any of your 5 stations for any hours of the day? Or is everything like a page out and come from home or work kind of scenario?
The training officer, he is located down in the South End station number 4. So he's there kind of Monday to Friday sort of thing. And he works in a suppression and a training capacity, as well as the deputy chief and myself are here at station 1, which is the centralmost station. So we can offer some immediate staffing solutions that way. But for the most part, the 85 volunteers we have are just all paged out from home.
Okay. For anybody who's joining us on Facebook Live, if you have a question for Roree during the interview, just go ahead and type it. And I'm kind of trying to monitor that on the side screen here, and I'll be able to ask him the question on your behalf. And that'll give you an opportunity to participate and maybe learn more from him about their department and the things that happened that we're going to talk about with the near miss event. Mike St. Clair, I don't know if you know Mike St. Clair, but he chimed in already. He said, "Hey, Rich, these guys are just north of me." So
yeah, I have bumped into him. I do know him from a chat forum. So
yeah, okay, all right. So Mike's on the Facebook feed, listening in. All right, so the event we're talking about happened on October 10th, 2019. So it was a pretty recent event. Tell me what that day was like leading up to the call, or was the call in the middle of the night? I'm not sure that I know.
No, you know what? It was in the middle of the day. It was just before lunchtime. It was a very nice day outside. It was just kind of, we're getting to the end of the week, and just kind of remember we had a couple calls going on in the week, but nothing of any real significance. And it was kind of one of those, I guess we're kind of due for a fire type days, and a fire we got.
Now, were you on duty?
Yeah, so I was working at Station 1 that day.
Okay. And how many people were with you at Station 1 when the call came in? Were you alone, or did you have other staff with you?
So it was just myself and the deputy chief that day. So when they, for a fire, like I say, for a first alarm assignment, it does involve at least one apparatus from 4 of our 5 stations. So the tones went out and dispatched the apparatus appropriately. I proceeded directly to the scene in my work vehicle, which is a pickup truck, and the deputy chief, I informed him just to make sure that one of the apparatus at a station 1 rolled. So he got on one of the apparatus in station 1.
Okay, and then when the call came in, how was it reported from dispatch?
Absolutely. So we were dispatched for a home with smoke and fire visible within the residence. One occupant had apparently been evacuated at that point in time. Other than that, there was no real information. So en route, it became apparent that it was just going to be one of those low staffing days for us. The first due truck booked on par 1. The second and the third trucks booked on par 3 and par 2. So I knew for my first 3 in apparatus, we were looking at a total of 6 personnel that were going to be there in a timely manner. I can remember driving down the road. There wasn't a lot of wind that day. So, any smoke would have been going straight up, so to speak. And it's quite a run, probably from station 1, it's a straight run to the south. And it's, I don't know, I'm going to say it's probably about 13 or 14 kilometers maybe from this station. And it was probably about 4 kilometers from station 4. So I can remember, driving there, I'm just looking, and it's one of those, should start to see smoke. It's up on a little bit of a hill, and there was nothing. There's a little bit of tree cover, but it wasn't too bad. We had to turn down a little side street just to get to where we were going. And it wasn't until I was almost right on top of the house that I seen some light smoke coming out of the front door. I'd given my size up, my initial report. I had pulled into the driveway, kind of made way. The first in truck knew what he was going to do. I had an experienced guy there, so he knew he was just going to be laying in a supply line to supply us some water.
Tell me what your size up was like, and describe the house as you could see it from the street level.
Absolutely. So when I pulled up from street level, it was probably I'm going to say it was probably about 150 feet from the roadway. And looking at it initially, it did look like it was a single-story bungalow. However, when I pulled into the driveway, which would have been to the delta side of the home, it was apparent that it was a backsplit home. Probably about a 2,000 square foot footprint on the main floor. It sat up on a hill, and it was probably about a 10 or 12 foot drop down to the back of the house. Again, kind of from that vantage point, I was trying to get out of the way of the apparatus. I was trying to, just get myself into a position where I could see a couple sides before I even got out of the truck. And, at that point, we just had some light smoke. It was kind of white, starting to get a little brown in color, but nothing crazy coming out of the front door. The occupant who was in the home at the time was nowhere to be seen. One of the neighbors was nearby, and he had mentioned to me that the person had evacuated, but again, it was unconfirmed at that point in time. So I proceeded around the back side of the house, around the Charlie side of the house. So the house itself, as I said, it kind of sat on a hill. It was a very nice home, fantastic view. It's about 150 feet from the road, and the front of the house was facing the west. So the rear of the home was facing the east. So there was quite a bit of landscaping that was around the corner of the CD side of the house. So I proceeded around the back doing my 360, just waiting for the first apparatus to come up the road. I could hear it coming. But when I got to the back of the house, that's kind of when things started to look a little odd. And I remember, just seeing the screens, the windows, the patio doors, everything were, 15, 20, 30 feet scattered along the backyard. And
what do you mean? They were blown out?
They were blown out. So, and I remember looking at the house, and then I can also remember going, but there's no fire. So it's like, okay, what caused this? I could clearly see some smoke coming out of the front door, but nothing at all at the back. So I had a clear shot looking in, and there was no fire on the lower level. And from where I was, obviously down below, I couldn't see any fire on the upper level. I had finished my 360, come up around the other side, proceeded over to my truck, and I knew, based on the number of personnel we had that day, that there was a good possibility that I was actually going to get to put my stuff on and do something. So, I'm still kind of that person, and I do like that. So anyway, whether I was just humping some hose or back in line, I didn't know, but it just, as it turned out, I thought, well, I'll get my stuff on, I'll get ready. So I put my gear on, I put my pack on, and I grabbed a couple extinguishing grenades that I had, and I proceeded to and I just started to head over to the front door of the house, and an explosion let out, and the front doors, which was a double set of front doors, with the frame, the jam, and everything, blew probably 20 feet out onto the front yard, along with all the windows in the house. And there was a fireball that come out of there, and I kind of did all right, what's going on here?
How close were you to the house when that explosion occurred?
You know what? I was probably about 30 feet away. I was probably about 30 feet away from where everything blew out. It wasn't that close, but it was close enough to go, okay, well, that's an attention getter. So I proceeded over to the front of the house, and there was a clear shot, looking inside the front door. And the driver and we kind of conversed on the way over, and he said, "Where do you want the line, Chief?" And I said, "You know what? We'll take one to the front door." What I really wanted to do was to actually run a line to the back of the house. However, just based on the staffing that we had available, and just the landscaping and things of that nature, we were going to have to all our pre-connect lines are 200 feet. So for anything over that, we're going to get to the point where we're just going to have to Y off a 2.5-inch line. So based on the fact that I only had 2 guys coming up the driveway, I couldn't see a lot of fire at all. There was a very minimal amount of fire, so the driver had stretched the line over to the front door. I said, yeah, so run your next 65 to the back, and we'll get one of the guys off one of these next in trucks to break a pre-connect and run another 100-foot section off that.
Roree, you're going to have to explain to at least 3/4 of my audience what a 65 is.
Sorry. I tried so hard not to do that. Sorry, a 2.5-inch line to the back, which was wide off to 2.5-inch lines. So,
I was just in. I was telling you before you started recording. I was in Grand Prairie, and I was talking with somebody in the class during class about some fire training, and he said he used the term a 44, and I said a 44. You're gonna have to do the conversion for me, and everybody laughed and said 1 3/4 line. I'm like, okay, I get that. So 44s are 1 3/4, 65s are 2.5s.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so he's now. Is there just 2 of you on the scene at this point?
So as it sits right now, there's just the 2 of us. So the second and the third trucks are pulling up. So the second one had 3 guys on it. The third one had 2 guys.
Okay.
So what we do for our water supply in a rural application is the first in trucks are all equipped with pre-connected manifolds. So they're capable of taking 3 2.5-inch lines, and it's a 4-inch line that we're running as a supply line. So the driver stopped at the road from the first in truck. He just kicked that off and then proceeded to lay his high vol hose up the driveway. So all the next in trucks, what they're going to do is they're just going to hook into those ports, and now we have water. And one of the reasons we did that is for these minimal staffing scenarios. As anybody knows who's ever pulled a porta tank and or porta ponds, whatever you want to call them, whoever's tried to do that, obviously they take a little bit of manpower to get done. But one of the other problems that we've found in that scenario is even when things are working good, these porta tanks have got so big, they take up a lot of room. And we all know that there's probably about 10 inches or a foot of water that are unusable in these things. And when you start dropping 2, 3, 4, 2,500 gallon porta tanks, there's a lot of water that can't be utilized. Yeah. So having the ability to get all this water on the fire immediately, because now everything's working on a pressurized water source, has been very beneficial to us. So the next 2 trucks in, they both hook into the manifold.
Let's hold on for a second. I want to go back to the explosion. I don't want to go past that too quick. When it exploded, was there smoke and fire as part of the explosion?
Yep, there was. And it was actually almost even a bit of a fireball that come out of the front door with the doors. Okay. It was quite a boom. It was quite a bang. And looking at it, you knew it wasn't a propane tank or anything of that nature. It was, it was pretty encompassing of the whole upper main level of that home.
And then was there active fire following that explosion?
There was, but at that point in time, it wasn't a crazy amount. So when I did proceed over to the entryway, I had those smoke grenades, the fire grenades with me, and I threw one in, and it seemed to suppress a good chunk of the fire that was visible. Giving those guys a bit of time to come up and join me at the line.
Okay, when that exploded, did you give any thought to, I wonder what caused that? Or were you just focused on getting the job done?
No, and you know what? And I definitely did. And there was two things that kind of went through my head. And the first one being, was that pressure. And and then I looked at it. I'm like, no, you know what? Pressure is not going to bring that fireball with it. So then when I had done my 360, the one thing I did not notice was a propane tank anywhere. But that was kind of my next thought. And, the home also had a lot of, it had some solar, it had some geothermal stuff. So I thought, well, okay, you know what, maybe the possibility of a propane tank doesn't exist. This house looks pretty self-sufficient on its own. So
is it pretty common for a propane tank to be, that's being used for, say, heating and cooking, to be stored inside of a house in that area? I mean, I understand if they like wheeled their gas grow into the basement or something for the winter or something like that, but would propane normally be inside like that?
Not like that. Around here, probably no different than there. We have a lot of, exterior propane tanks, larger stuff, but the explosion itself did look like it was some form of propane or natural gas in itself. But there's no natural gas that runs out there, and I just couldn't see any exterior propane tanks. But looking at the fireball that come out of the front door, it was clear that something drove that explosion.
Yeah. Okay. Now you said that you had used these fire suppression, I don't know what you call them, bombs or whatever. So a lot of people aren't familiar with those and what they are and how they work and if they're effective. And I've even heard some controversy, surrounding them. So let's just pause on this event and give you a chance to teach us a little bit about what those are, what do they look like, under what circumstances would they be used, have you used them before, have they been effective, to unpackage that technology a little bit for us.
Absolutely. So, these are something that we kind of tried out maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was just I was the deputy chief at the time, and the chief and we just carried them in our vehicles. And a lot of times we'd arrive first and have no real means of extinguishing anything. So these are designed essentially for just a quick minimal effort operation. It's essentially an aerosol can, if you will, of extinguishing agent. So much like you would see in the movies, you pull the pin on this thing like a grenade. You can throw it in how they're really designed is to work to a fire that is not self-venting. So if you have it, it's a room and contents fire, 10 by 10, 10 by 12, so to speak. You throw one of those in there, and it may not extinguish the fire, but it's going to suppress things enough, through the distribution of dry chem, that it really resets the clock for you and lets you work. And we've used them, I'm going to say probably about 8 to 10 times. And sometimes they're successful, and you figure out pretty quickly when it says about a 10 by 10 room that it's a 10 by 10 room, not a 20 by 30 room, because I've thrown them in at times and they just kind of laugh at you. You're waiting for it to throw it back out. So, but this was kind of one of those ones I thought, you know what, we'll give it a whirl. And based on the fire conditions that I seen, I thought, this might be beneficial here. So pulled the pin, chucked one in the front door, or where the front doors were, and it went off. You can hear it. It kind of makes a little bit of a hissing sound. And I noticed the smoke change a little bit and kind of dropped a bit of the gray, went to a little bit of white. And then I thought, okay, good. This is a nice little reset for us.
Okay, good. Now, for the people that are on the Facebook Live, if you have any questions for Roree, just go ahead and type your questions, and I will ask them for him. Chief Bittner from Lakemore, Ohio, welcome. Mike, welcome from North Dakota. And Mike St. Clair, your buddy Mike St. Clair, he's laughing at me saying, I need to learn the metric system.
They're throwing a little smack around at me. Which, you're probably right. You know, we tried that once here in the States. So even when I was a kid, they tried to convert all of us to metric, and it was an epic failure. It just didn't work real well. So we're still on 1 3/4 and 2.5. All right, so you throw these bombs, for lack of a better word, in. They start hissing. What kind of effect do you have? The lines are being laid. You now have 2 more trucks on the scene. You got 6 total people. And do you make number 7 there?
Yeah. So yeah.
All right, and I assume your command.
That's correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
my initial report was I was going to be operating in command mode on the Alpha side, and then I had made a plan to transition to fast attack.
Okay. All right, so you throw those in. Is this one of those times where they worked or the fire laughed at you?
Yeah, no. Actually, you know what? I didn't see it come flying back out the front door. It seemed to work a little bit. You know, a bit of the fire disappeared. The smoke started to change a little bit. So I thought, okay, you know, this is perfect. The line was right there. I bled it off. You know, checked my pattern. Everything was good. And the crew that was coming up from the road, they had joined me. I had mentioned to one of the 2 to go grab. Break off the top half of the Minuteman load and bring it back to the wide off 2.5-inch line that had been stretched to the rear there, and that was where the second crew was supposed to make entry.
Okay. And I got another question that came in on Facebook. Tim Hogue wants to know if there was any mutual aid or auto aid coming in at the time that you guys were on the scene.
So yeah, you know what? Great question. Thanks, Tim. So basically, our first alarm assignment. So out of that station, I had a pumper and a tanker. I had a pumper and a tanker coming from Station 3. I had a squad coming from Station 1. I had a tanker coming from Station 5. So upon arrival, this is in the extreme south end of our area. I requested, when I seen smoke showing based on our minimal staffing, before I even turned in the driveway, and if you do recall, I did say I couldn't see any smoke at all until I was basically right on top of it. So at that point in time, I requested a pumper and a tanker from our mutual aid partners in the south, which was Mulner-Melancton Fire. And then I also requested our second last tanker, which was up from Station 6, and it's pretty far up in the north end. Just to give you an idea, the mutual aid was probably about 10 minutes away, and our own tanker at that point was probably about 20 minutes away.
Okay, so total number of tankers coming to this, is that 3? Did I get that number right, or was there 4?
So it would be, on the initial dispatch was 3. However, we were up to 5 if you count the mutual aid and that additional request from our tanker.
Okay, so were 3 of them yours and 2 mutual aid, or 4 of them yours and 1 mutual aid?
Four of them were ours and 1 was mutual aid.
Okay, and then pumpers, there were 2 from yours and 1 mutual aid?
So there'd be 2 from us, and our squads are actually pumpers, if you will.
Okay.
So that would be 3 from us and then 1 from mutual aid. Yeah.
Okay. When at whatever point your manpower situation changes, be sure to include that as the story progresses along, because right now I'm on the mindset that everything you're doing right now is with a crew of 7, including you.
Yep, that's right. So from that point, the crew comes up from the road from pump 32, and I decide I'm going to split them. So one is going to go with me, and the other one is going to wide that line off to the 2.5 that was stretched at the rear. So we make entry in through the front doors, and at this point in time, you know, there's definitely some fire conditions present. We entered into a bit of a hallway. We proceeded to the left where it was obvious the fire was coming from. And I just want to kind of back up to the point where when we went in, the smoke was going straight up. There was no wind at all. It was coming out of that front door, and it was just going straight up. So we had made entry, and we're knocking down some fire. I'd asked the driver at that point to add 0.5% of foam We're big proponents of using foam in the rural applications, to stretch out your water supply. So he adds a 0.5%, and I mean, we're just painting the inside of this hallway, just covering it in foam. We're knocking down fire. We keep heading down the hall to the left, and we get to the point where we're at the top of the stairs. And I can remember looking down the stairs and saying, there's the fire. Like, we just kind of got to get down the stairs around this corner. And the stairs, so where we were going down, basically the front of the house, if you will, to the left, the stairs, I think you went down probably 3 or 4 steps in front of you, and then it turned, and then you would have went essentially to the back of the house, down the rest of the stairs. Probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 stairs maybe.
Okay, so from the top of the stairs, you could see fire in the basement.
Yep, absolutely. And then
hold on. But when you were doing your 360 and all those windows were blown out and you were doing the walk around, that fire wasn't visible to you from the outside when you were doing your 360.
No, it wasn't. And I can remember saying that. And there was 2 things that I remember saying to myself kind of at that point in time was, A, why couldn't I see that fire when I was at the back of the house? But B, if stuff happens to go poorly here, I just remembered going, there's that big opening in the back of the house where those patio doors were, and they were probably directly behind us.
Okay.
So that's I just kind of that was the thought that went through my head right there. And I kind of did the old, we're going to go to the bottom of the stairs here. We're going to keep knocking down fire, and we're going to put this thing out. So it was pretty well at that point as we're making our way down there that one of the next in arriving apparatus, they had established the water supply. I got the call from them, so I think they had 2 trucks hooked up. So that would have been at that point with those 2 trucks about 3,000 gallons out at the road, and then I could hear the next in trucks coming up the road as well.
In the line that you're in there's 2 of you on the interior. The line you have in there is a 1 3/4 or 44.
So we have we've got an 1.5 line with a just trying to do some math here for you. So about 150 gallon a minute nozzle.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So it was kind of at that point right then and there where stuff really started to turn. And, I can remember saying to myself as I'm kind of trying to hit the fire, just the way the wall went downstairs, I'm kind of knocking the fire down. And then I just remember watching the fire, come up around the wall, and all of a sudden everything we were doing just stopped working. All the head we were making, the fire that we were putting out absolutely stopped. Fire got angry and everything went black, and just black within a half a second. But then it was the next half a second where everything just went orange. And the only way I can describe it is if you had been in a fishbowl that was, instead of water, it was fire, that is the only way I could describe that. And I can remember, I think about it now, I'm like, what an idiot. But I can remember thinking and just kind of looking around inside the fire, and everything was visible. I could see pictures on the wall. I could see trim. I could see doors that I couldn't see before. And I turned around to look at my partner, and he was probably about 7 or 8 feet behind me. And then I turned back around, and I had opened up the nozzle into a wide fog, and again, it still continued to do nothing. And then the next thing I did was I started to back up a little bit, but as you often roll your ear protectors up there on your helmet, I can remember saying to myself, oh, you forgot to put those down. My ears were just scorching. But so I spent a little bit of time trying to grab those and bring those down, and I just kind of went to heck with this and kept booking her backwards. So, but he was just far enough behind me that I don't know if I was blocking. I'm not a very big guy, and I remember him saying afterwards, he's like, I don't know how that's possible, but you seem to block every bit of fire that come at me. And so I pushed him, and I said, okay, Kevin, go. And he's like, where are we going? I said, I don't care, anywhere but here. So we had kind of worked our way just kind of back along the hose and outside the front door.
Did you take the hose with you or did you leave it?
Yeah, you know what? We brought it with us.
Okay.
And but when you went into the house, you went up a couple of little steps, maybe one or two little steps on a front porch to get up to the front door. So when we came out of the house, we ended up coming down them, and I know at that point we're walking on the grass, but you couldn't see anything. There was less visibility on the grass than there was in the house. So I just needed to kind of get out of it, need to get out of the heat. And then eventually we turned left and broke the smoke column. And what had kind of happened and what had changed at that point, now the smoke is, if you recall that I said was when we went in was going straight up, it was literally going 100 feet laterally before it started to lift. It was actually blowing out to the road before it was starting to make any type of vertical rise whatsoever. So by then, in that couple of minutes that we were inside, the wind picked up from no wind to, I think it was like 45 kilometers an hour. I don't know, whatever. That'd be like 30 miles an hour, maybe.
Windy.
It was windy, it was breezy. Your laundry would have dried fast. But anyway, and that's kind of what I remember. So then when we just we went out to take a quick little breather, but then I figured that line was around the back side of the house that I had requested, the 1.5 inch, put on the wide off 2.5. And we went around there, we grabbed that, but by that point, it really didn't matter. We'd also stretched a 2.5 ground monitor around the back as well. But by then the house was essentially gone, or like it wasn't gone, but it was fully involved at that point on the lower and the upper levels. It just completely lit up.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions about when you were inside when that lit up. Pause. Derek Hicks from Niagara Falls says, "Thanks for sharing your experience, Chief." So he's listening in, and and got Daniel Jones also, retired chief from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, is on the program. And by the way, I'll give a little shout out for Chief Jones. If you're looking for leadership development for company officers or chief officers, take a look at the work that Dan Jones is doing with fire departments all over the U.S. Small team development of some powerful leadership skills. So thanks for joining in, Chief Jones. When you were inside and that lit up, what was going through your mind? I know you said you could see everything that was happening around you, but what were you thinking at the moment when that lit up? Were you thinking this could be it, or hey, it just got really hot? Or
it never got to then. I had a few people ask me, did you think this might be it or whatever? And I never really got there. The first thing that kind of went through my head was that opening at the back of the house. And it was like, if I can't go backwards, I need to go forwards, like to to where the patio doors were. But
were you in the basement, or were you still at the top of the stairs?
I was only about 2 stairs down, 2 to 3 stairs down when that lit up. And
so you'd have had to continue going down into that inferno to get out those basement doors.
Absolutely. And and why I thought that, I don't know. But it was just a matter of if I had to. But stuff was working and we were still able to get back and out. But it just, because it happened so quick and the heat was just so intense. Like, I've done a lot of live fire training and just like everybody. But I've just never found anything that got even close to that. And it was such an unexpected that you really almost didn't even have time to think. And it's funny, and I said to some guys afterwards, as somebody who's taught a lot of firefighter survival and things of that nature, I almost feel like a hypocrite saying, well, make sure you get your Mayday call, and all that thing, because the last thing that I was thinking of doing was a Mayday call. And as it turned out, it ended up melting the antenna on my radio, which didn't work anyway. So that definitely would have been an issue, but it was truly, I kind of, the doors in the back of the house kind of flashed in my head. But the next thing was like, I forgot to put those ear flaps down. Like it just got that hot. And as it turns out, I did put them down. It had just actually started to burn them off.
Wow. So what were some of the thermal consequences to your turnout gear? I know you sent me some pictures, and I'll include those in the show notes and put clips of them onto the show here. Thank you to Fire Chief Roree Payment for sharing your near-miss experience with our listeners and viewers today. And thank you for sending all of your officers through our Situational Awareness Matters online academy. Remember, this is part 1 of a 2-part interview, so be sure to check back next week for the continuation of the interview and his lessons learned. I launched the Situational Awareness Matters show back in 2014 with a purpose: to give a platform to those who've had near-miss events to share their stories, just like the one you heard Chief Payment tell. When I'm on the road delivering situational awareness classes, I often ask attendees about the near-miss events they've experienced, and they have shared some absolutely amazing stories with me. Their stories motivated me to launch this podcast so those lessons could be shared with a bigger audience. You. The Situational Awareness Matters show, podcasted as SA Matters Radio, and our companion video program, the SA Matters TV channel on YouTube, along with other videos and audios that we have posted there, have enjoyed more than 1 million views and listens. I am so honored to provide a free platform for these incredible lessons to be shared. If you like the show, please consider doing me a solid favor. Please subscribe. For the audio version, it's SA Matters Radio on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, or iHeartRadio. If you prefer to watch the show on video, subscribe to SA Matters TV on YouTube. And if you find value in the show, I would really appreciate it if you would take just a little bit of time to give the show a rating and to write a review. Your ratings and reviews help others to find the show, but more importantly, your feedback inspires me to want to work even harder for you. Since 2007, our instructional team and consultants have helped more than 1,300 organizations train and have trained over 86,000 individuals to improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, public transportation operators, aviation workers, oil refinery process operators, biotech workers, and more. If someone you know works in a high-risk, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we're here to help improve their safety and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all, and that is to go home from work whole and healthy every day to the ones who love them. I'd like to take a moment to honor and to thank the companies, organizations, associations, and departments that have hosted recent situational awareness training for their team members. The Colorado Department of Transportation, a biotechnology company in Rhode Island, the International Association of Fire Chiefs Volunteer and Combination Officers Symposium in the Sun, the County of Grand Prairie Fire Services, the Florida Fire Chiefs Association Safety Conference. If you're interested in attending an upcoming program, here's where we're going to be next. On December 4th, I'll be attending a meeting of the safety managers for ExxonMobil's North American operations in Galveston, Texas. December 5 through 7 at the National Speakers Association Certified Speaking Professional Summit in San Diego, California. December 8th at Sandoval County Fire and Rescue in Albuquerque, New Mexico. January 8th, another industrial consulting project for one of the world's largest producers of rolled aluminum products. January 11th at the Lincoln County Fire Chiefs Association in Denver, North Carolina. January 30th at the Evans Fire Department in Evans, Colorado. February 5 at the Miami Valley Fire and Rescue Conference in Dayton, Ohio. February 7 and 8th at the South Carolina Fire Chiefs Association Conference in Columbia, South Carolina. February 24 through 27 at Firehouse World Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you want to see the locations of all the upcoming events, just head over to our website, samatters.com. and click the red tab that's about halfway down the homepage labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. If you're interested in talking with us about conducting a situational awareness assessment for your company, or if you're interested in hosting a training program, just click on the Contact Us tab on the top of the homepage, and I'll give you a call. If you want to become part of our community of learners, there are several ways that you can do that. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter, which is free. You can subscribe to the SA Matters radio podcast, which is free. You can subscribe to the SA Matters TV YouTube channel, which is free. And you can join us on social media channels of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. There we're sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 297 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you to our guest again, Fire Chief Roree Payment. Thank you to our platinum sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, SimsUShare. Thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. Thank you to all the companies, agencies, and organizations and associations that have hosted Situational Awareness Matters training programs. Thank you to all the organizations that have hosted a live stream training program where I come to your organization live via the internet to train your members. Thank you to the more than 3,500 students and graduates of the highly acclaimed Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. The feedback I've received from Academy graduates is just amazing and humbling, and I thank you for that. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gassaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgassaway.com.